I mentioned Detroit earlier. That was a city that went from 3 million people to 600,000. When they thought about how we rebuild our workforce, repopulate our city, reimagine our future, one of the first things they did was build a coalition to focus on attracting immigrants. Because of the dynamicism of those folks, because of their tendency to launch small businesses at a higher rate, what a great way to create jobs. They have done a lot through their state to be attractive and welcoming to a foreign-born population. And I just think that for Alaska, we should be doing the exact same thing. Staring at net out-migration for over 11 years, staring at a super thin labor pool, we need to be bringing more people into the state, bar none.
Welcome to the East Anchorage Book Club. I'm your host, Andrew Gray. The purpose of this podcast is to tell stories of Alaskans of interest and importance. Today's guest is Kirk Rose, who is the CEO of the Anchorage Community Land Trust. ACLT started in Mountain View in 2003 and has supported new housing, public spaces, and businesses ever since. Kirk began as an intern at the organization 15 years ago and has never left. We discuss his journey to this work and the specific role that ACLT plays in supporting foreign-born entrepreneurs here in Anchorage. Kirk Rose, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here. Happy New Year.
So tell us a little bit about your early life. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a corner of the state of Iowa in the cornfields, first-generation college student in my family. Went to school in the Midwest in Minneapolis, and then made my way up to Alaska as an AmeriCorps Vista volunteer. Started out as an AmeriCorps Vista at this organization called Anchorage Community Land Trust, which today I'm the CEO of. Been in Alaska for, this is going to be my 15th year. The entire time, our headquarters have been based in the neighborhood of Mountain View, and so I've spent a lot of my life and career really working pretty deeply in that neighborhood. And as Anchorage Community Land Trust has grown, our work across the city has grown too. So we really concentrate in what I think of as northern and eastern Anchorage, but really in kind of the historic early neighborhoods of the city, which are also the lowest income parts of town.
I want to talk a lot about the land trust, but before that, you're a first-generation college graduate. What did your parents do?
My mom was a secretary in a legal office, and she was a serial entrepreneur. She was always starting businesses, which has had an influence on me and our work at Anchorage Community Land Trust. Her parents were farmers in Northwest Iowa. My dad was a post office worker. My parents split up pretty early, so I was basically raised by a single mom. Yeah, we were always working at something my mom was up to make a little bit of extra money. She also worked in real estate, so she got her license to sell houses. And in depressed rural Iowa, you can buy a house for like $19,000. So she'd bring in this crew of labor, which consisted of me and my brother and sister. And we would tear down old wallpaper, rip up old flooring, and then we would try to sell that house for $22,000 maybe and make a little bit of money for the family. She also owned a pet shop. She owned a bunch of funny things. Those are good stories. I won't belabor them too long, but yeah, hardworking lady and really inspiration for me still to this day.
So those super cheap houses, I don't know if you followed, but Carrie Lake, who had run for Senate in Arizona and lost, just bought a home in Iowa so she could run for Senate in Iowa when Chuck Grassley retires.
I hadn't heard that one.
Yeah, and I mean, it was widely reported that she purchased a home for $60,000 in 2025 in Iowa.
Yeah.
So I guess they used to be $19,000 and now they're $60,000. It's still dirt cheap. That is just crazy town.
Yeah, I think you can buy a new F-250 for more than that, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting. So what did you study in college?
Yeah, I studied political science. Early on, I think I was always fascinated by the relationship of people to power. And in studying political science, I got to see how that relationship played out and what it meant for folks of all walks of life. But especially early on, I was thinking about myself and my story and my family. And I think increasingly I think about the relationship to power for our low-income families, for the people that we're going to talk about a little bit more, immigrants, new Alaskans, folks new to the United States, anyone who has been situated away from power. I think there's a real right in this country to participation, to economic opportunity. And that's what we try to do at the organization that I run today.
You became an AmeriCorps Vista volunteer right out of college?
Yeah, service was really important to me. And AmeriCorps is a great way to get a little bit more of that under your belt. And I think roll up your sleeves and do some of the hard work in community. And if people aren't aware of the AmeriCorps program, a lot of great folks in the state have actually come here because of AmeriCorps. And a lot of Alaskans themselves participate because they want to give back. You commit yourself to a year of poverty. Essentially, you're working, making below minimum wage, and you're embedded at community organizations across the state where you learn the ropes and get the experience of what it's like to be really poor in this country and to give back yourself. Unfortunately, recently, a lot of AmeriCorps has been cut under the current administration, which I think is a true shame. It is basically a domestic Peace Corps and an incredible pipeline for people in our social services industries and beyond, really.
And you landed at Anchorage Community Land Trust.
Yeah, I was working as an organic farmer in Washington State at the time. And then I didn't know you could go any further north. I hadn't really thought about it. And I ended up with an AmeriCorps Vista offer. When I first came up in 2011, the rest of the country was still coming out of a pretty deep recession. And Alaska at that time, as often happens, there was an inverse influence in the economy. Alaska was booming. There was jobs, there was opportunities. So I got an opportunity with Anchorage Community Land Trust as a Vista volunteer. And then after my year, I was employed by ACLT and have since grown with the organization.
So the way I know you is that we held a hearing in House Judiciary last year about struggles that immigrants were having in the new presidential administration. My staff organized those hearings. So, I showed up to see our list of folks who were testifying. I didn't say it to them, but I mean, when I first saw Anchorage Community Land Trust there, not knowing anything about what that organization does, I thought seems like a misfit. Like, I don't even know why they're here. It turned out that you gave amazing testimony, very relevant. In fact, I will play some right here. I'm going to play a little bit of what you said.
So from our decades of experience working in neighborhoods that host our city's highest percentages of foreign-born residents, and from the waves of resettlement across centuries of American history, we know what happens when we invest in new Americans. It strengthens our community and our economy from within. New Alaskans contribute over $1.8 billion in spending power to the state, paying over $300 million in state, local, and federal taxes, including into Medicare and Social Security. And in 2014, the nearly 3,000 foreign-born business owners in Alaska generated close to $60 million in business income. 10 years later, we know that these numbers have only grown. While New Alaskans make up only 8.5% of Anchorage's total population, immigrants made up 14.2%, or approximately 1 in 7 of Anchorage's small business owners. So, if talent attraction and population growth are top issues for business and community vitality, and simply put, they are, then we need to ensure we maintain and grow our new Alaskan communities. Immigration is a critical source to our state's economic prosperity and our future growth.
So clearly, the right person had been invited to testify, which was you. But for someone like me who doesn't know what the Anchorage Community Land Trust is, what is a community land trust and what is Anchorage's?
Yeah, our Anchorage Community Land Trust is a nonprofit organization that drives investment and opportunity into Anchorage's most exciting, highest opportunity neighborhoods. Our focus is really Mountain View, Fairview, Spenard, and Muldoon, and increasingly on downtown. And our strategies revolve around advocacy, which is part of my testimony, and getting to talk in the community. It's around community organizing and energizing. It's around real estate and dynamic programs. And really, when we focus on the small business community in those neighborhoods, we believe in really outsized impacts. Our strategies around opening small businesses on high traffic commercial corridors, really we believe has tons of ripple effects. So if you can find someone in Mountain View who wants to open a business in Mountain View, resource them, train them, support them, see them succeed, guess what happens? The kids who walk by that business on their way to school every day get to see someone from their community that they likely know, who is a role model, who says hi to them, who is someone that they can see succeeding in their community. The community gathers in those spaces. We have third spaces in those communities that are owned by the community. There's placemaking that happens because usually those businesses are reflections of who those people are. whether that's Native culture, African American culture. And then that's not to forget the wealth generation that happens, because businesses typically that succeed are generational. So our focus is really on what we call building from within. When you center strategies in Mountain View, Fairview, Spenard, you're working in some of the toughest places in town to start small businesses. Guess what? Those strategies actually transcend those neighborhoods and are good strategies for the entire city of Anchorage. So that's what we've been doing for close to 20 years. It's a passion project of mine. I think you could see that it's connected to my early life and my mom, a serial entrepreneur. I see what it means to have a small business built into family structure. Only good things come of a family committed to opening businesses in place. And I think the connection to the House Judiciary testimony is really that, especially the foreign-born population has this superpower of entrepreneurship. And it's something that we need to think really hard about as a city and a state to unlock, because we're in a situation where out-migration and a shallow labor pool is starting to become really defining for us here. And it's impacting opportunities and growth in our state. And when you have the numbers, I'll talk about a little bit more, but when you have the powerhouse of foreign-born populations wanting to start businesses, wanting to locate here, becoming employers, it's a great thing for Alaska. And we're trying to essentially tell that story and grow the tent around that strategy so that we can take Alaska into its next phase. Look, in the Midwest where I grew up, there's all these examples of what we call the Rust Belt. And in all these different places, especially in Michigan and Detroit, attraction of foreign-born talent is a huge part of combating out-migration and rebuilding an economy that is good for everybody. Alaska is in the same out-migration pattern. We have 11 years straight of population decline. And I think we need to start thinking bigger about how we attract people to the state, not as something that happens kind of on accident, but that we're doing very purposefully and actively.
Getting to the nuts and bolts, you help somebody who's interested in starting a business in Mountain View, for example, learn how to run a business, how to get started, how to find the space. But how do you find that person? And I guess like a twofold question.
Yeah.
How do you find people who are interested in starting businesses in these communities? And second half, how do people in the community know what the Anchorage Community Land Trust is and does? Like, how do they know that they should go see you if they want to start a business?
Yeah, those people find us actually, and it's because we're embedded in those neighborhoods and because of our reputation and 20 years of doing work in those communities. Typically, people find our organization because of word of mouth, because someone in their community who speaks their language or shares their context says, "Hey, I know these great people who want to work with you." We see failings in kind of the mainstreaming of small businesses into the typical support systems. And that's why we exist, because
What are some examples of the way the mainstreaming fails small businesses?
Yeah, I mean, you can see that everything is about a relationship, right? And our strategy is to go into community and be in community. I think when we fail on that front is when we wait for people to come to us. And Anchorage is an incredibly diverse place, and our neighborhoods are incredibly rich and full of relationships. And we really see it as our responsibility of our organization to go even deeper in those relationships to find the people that need the help the most. And that's not a criticism of anyone else. I think it's just uniquely our superpower, and what we're here to do is to find those people and help bring their businesses to life. And when we do find them, we surround them with a ton of high-touch support. We train them over the course of 12 weeks. And then when they're done with training, they're not just sent off. They come back to our offices for really high-touch one-on-one technical assistance with our incredible small business staff team. When they're ready, and when it's typically, not after 3 weeks, it's after 6 months to a year, we help to work with them on the next steps in their business journey. Typically, that's finding access to capital so that they can open the business of their dreams. We've really created a space for small business lending in our state that hadn't existed before, and that's loans under $25,000. And then high-touch support on opening bricks and mortar spaces. And all of that connects back to our mission that I was saying earlier, which is that we want these businesses to grow and succeed so that community ownership happens from within, and that influence shows up in bricks and mortar spaces in our community. So you can really see it and touch it and be part of it and feel the vibrancy. And you can feel that happening in Mountain View after our 15 to 20 years of investment. You go down the street from a brand new library, which was a municipal investment, to small business is opened by the community. up and down that corridor, you aren't seeing vacancy. You're seeing small businesses that are occupying and succeeding and creating its own culture and vibe, which is really unique in our city. And we want to do that across Northern Anchorage.
You guys have been involved in hundreds of small businesses, correct, over the past 20 years?
Yeah, I think we've worked with 600 unique small businesses at this point, thousands of hours of technical assistance with this one-on-one with our staff. I mentioned the small business loan product that's really been in partnership with Cook Inlet Lending Center, but access to capital, 50,000 and less, really didn't exist in the state 10 years ago. ACLT ourselves, we started lending money, which was probably a crazy, foolish thing to do. But when we started doing it and showing that there was a market, a number of our CDFI partners stepped up and said, hey, this need does exist. Let's make this product available. Through our program, I think we've seen close to 750,000 in small business loans deployed. I think that's to close to 25 different small businesses. Yeah, the numbers prove out. We are meeting people, working with them, and our demand from our services exceeds our capacity, in all honesty.
I would assume that there are folks who come in who are interested in starting a small business, and you guys have been around enough and seen enough to know when somebody's has an idea for a business that's probably not going to work. Or, I mean, do you vet the business? Do you say, hey, I'm not sure that a flower shop is needed in this neighborhood, or I'm just making stuff up. But like, do you help them shift their focus or find the right focus?
There are specific businesses that we don't feel like are beneficial to our community that we don't work with on purpose. I don't think it really works to tell people, no, that business isn't going to work. Entrepreneurs are too hardy and contrary, and they should be, because you have to have an incredible amount of grit to start a small business. I think we help people come to their own conclusions. We canvass the market data. We look at market capture. We start to show people like, well, this is what's actually going on. Can you outcompete this competitor? Are you sure that this need exists? Have you worked with your customers or potential customers to understand the need? I think what's great, though, is that while entrepreneurs will come to us with an idea, the core of an entrepreneur is someone who can pivot and move quickly and is nimble. And so people will see that something isn't maybe as bright lights as they thought, but when you turn it a little bit, there's your pathway forward. And that happens not just with our staff, but in our training cohorts where they're working together with other potential small business owners to think more about their ideas. Additionally, we do community cohorts that are specifically for, one example is the Ukrainian-born population that was in Alaska, that is still coming to Alaska and growing in Alaska. We trained in Ukrainian with an all-Ukrainian cohort, and those business owners come in on that first class, and this is their precious idea, and it's in their notebook, and no one can look too closely at it. But by that 12th class, they're talking out loud about their business. They're getting ideas from other business owners around them. And really, it's that group process that helps us come to this amazing conclusion of like, hey, this thing could actually work. Now, that being said, 20% of our businesses that come through our training program actually go on to launch. Failure is a gift. Knowing that your business isn't going to work because you've studied the heck out of it and thought hard about it is probably the best financial thing that you can do, right? Taking out a huge loan for a business that hasn't been thought about is what happens too often and damages people long-term. So we want to help people come to their own conclusions, and we want to do it collectively as a community and be the wind in their sails.
So I don't want to like focus on the negative, but I'm going to ask another negative question. And that is, we know that so many small businesses fail.
Yeah.
It's, a minority that become profitable and grow. Do you have folks whose businesses are stumbling along and not really taking off, or ultimately just in the red so often that you recommend that they shut down? I mean, do you assist with that? Do you offer,
yeah, you have to always be, any entrepreneur that comes to our program should be thinking about exit, even from day one. Honestly, in the economic climate today in this state, where we're just coming out of COVID, don't forget, the billions of dollars that were put into the PPP program, which was just helping people stay open. Then we're coming into this post-COVID economy where businesses are trying to figure out their positioning in a new world, straight into the imposition of these tariffs, which has impacted the cost of goods and the cost of goods sold for everybody. Everyone is looking at their menu and wondering, is that price of the burger still right? Will my customers still come in and buy it? So yeah, I mean, it is turbulent out there for small business owners. Equally, labor participation, the labor pool in our state is extremely challenged. 1 in 5 of our workforce are non-residents right now. It's a challenging business environment, yes, and especially for small business owners. In our program, almost 70% of who we work with are considered BIPOC. 80% are women-owned entrepreneurs. We're working with the next generation of business talent in our city, and we're super excited about that. Foreign-born individuals are more likely to start businesses than U.S.-born citizens. Foreign-born individuals have a higher participation rate in the workforce than Alaskan-born folks. You have a very motivated population, and especially we work in some of the most diverse communities in the country. In Mountain View, that's just our neighborhood. Those are the folks that walk in. So yeah, it's wonderful. I think the business energy is super exciting. It is very common for us to be working with a Somali halal entrepreneur, a Ukrainian construction firm, and an Egyptian falafel shop, right? That's just what Anchorage is, and it's super exciting.
That brings us to today. So when we met for the first time, I think in April of this year, for the hearing on challenges that immigrants were facing in Alaska under the Trump administration, we talked a lot about the pausing of renewal of work visas, of people's temporary protected status. Our immigration system is super complicated, and this episode's not about that. But the bottom line is that people who had a path to come here, that path was cut off, and people who were here basically were losing their right to work and their documentation to stay here. Yeah. And I think it's very complicated because I think people say, oh, well, we want to encourage legal immigration. We want to discourage illegal immigration, but it's not a binary. There are many, many people here who were going through the process, doing everything right. And then basically almost overnight, everything changed for them. And I guess, can you speak a little bit about your lens on that from ACLT?
Yeah, I think what we need to be doing is fighting population loss and economic stagnation. And we know that immigrant participation, foreign-born participation in our workforce and in our small business ownership and entrepreneurship sector is hugely important. I mentioned Detroit earlier because I think Michigan has been a really leading light here. That was a city that went from 3 million people to 600,000. When they thought about how we rebuild our workforce, repopulate our city, reimagine our future, one of the first things they did was build a coalition to focus on attracting immigrants. Because of the dynamicism of those folks, because of their tendency to launch small businesses at a higher rate, what a great way to create jobs. They have done a lot through their state to be attractive and welcoming to a foreign-born population. And I just think that for Alaska, we should be doing the exact same thing. Staring at net out-migration for over 11 years, staring at a super thin labor pool, we need to be bringing more people into the state, bar none. And I think some things that aren't working, rhetoric, demonizing immigrants. I think the federal ICE occupation of cities is not welcoming and doing the opposite. I think we need to lift up our university system here and make it a huge vehicle for attracting foreign-born talent. I think there's a lot of things that we could be doing to help grow the population of our state.
I spoke to Anna Taylor, the director of the Alaska Institute of Justice, last week, and I had the question for her was, are we still getting visas approved? Are you still able to move folks forward through the immigration process and get them the status that they need, their work permits, et cetera? And the answer was yes.
Great.
So in spite of what we see in the media, which appears to be sort of a complete shutdown on immigration, that's not in fact what's happening.
Yeah.
And I guess my analogous question for you is, your organization is continuing to help folks start new businesses, you're doing the same things. Have you seen a decrease in the number of people involved? Have you seen any changes in the past year?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest challenges for us are federal cuts that decrease our capacity to serve people. Our challenge is not actually finding people who need help, who need support, who want to work with us to help grow their business. It's actually the capacity to serve that audience. So we had a partnership with Cook Inlet Lending Center and Cook Inlet Tribal Council, which was a $5 million grant through the Minority Business Development Agency, which is a statute agency that was cut in early January. It's created a reduction of force at our organization. We have talented people who are oversubscribed, wanting to work with talented business owners who we can't because we don't have enough hours in the day. I think the other thing, I want to mention, and to your point, when we get folks to our state, the other amazing thing about Alaska is that folks move towards citizenship at a higher rate than the rest of the country. I think the rest of the country, it's right around 50%. And in Alaska, it's around 60%. So when people do arrive here, they are becoming citizens and becoming Alaskans. And it's an incredible fact and something that we should all be proud of. Yes, let's keep it going. Let's grow it. What I really want to do is have the opportunity to mobilize the business community along with this, because we can all point to labor shortages, and that will be the number one thing any business owner says to you. But what we need to do is grow the strategy to include economic integration of immigrants into our strategies, and to build the tent, and to create policies at the state and local level and push on federal level so that we work to attract more people, not decrease the flow of people into this country and state.
Well, I had Tatiana Robbins on a few months ago. She talked about that in particular, about lots of employers calling her organization and saying, hey, I love my employees. What do I need to do so that they can come back to work? Who do I call? What do I do? And there has been a concerted effort to pressure our federal delegation and the White House. We've tried to do carve-outs for Alaska to just be like, okay, do freezes everywhere else. Can you treat Alaska differently and allow us to have our immigrants and have our immigrants working and not have this pressure to self-deport? And we haven't been able to do that. So I think that's something that might be getting lost from the narrative, is that business owners want us to find solutions so that the foreign-born population in Alaska can continue to work and have a positive impact on our state as they have been doing. And unfortunately, it's federal decisions thousands of miles away that are making things more difficult.
And it's not just an idea, it's a proven strategy, right? It's something that has worked to fight economic stagnation and population loss, is to attract an immigrant workforce. It's proven, and we need to be doing it as much as we can, thinking about it more, elevating the conversation, and growing the advocacy behind it.
Tell us about Grow North Farm. What is that?
Yeah, Grow North Farm is this incredible space in our community. And if you haven't visited, I'd encourage you to, as soon as you can, not right now where it's -8, a balmy -8, but this summer, maybe in June, and you'll come to one of the most vibrant spots in our city. It's an urban farm, which means that you're not driving out to Palmer. It's right here in the heart of North Anchorage in the neighborhood of Mountain View. And it's run by Mountain View community members who also happen to be refugees. There's 28,000 square feet of soil there, which is growing both Alaskan vegetables and world vegetables. It's an emerging marketplace for entrepreneurs. It's a great place to try food from around the world. There's also just, I want to put it in a bottle every time I'm there, but there's a feeling of welcoming and home and sharing for everyone who visits. You're welcome into this space, which is truly run by people who are learning to call Alaska home. And I think that that's a gift for them to get to host and share their culture and their world with you. But beyond just that feeling, you're also eating some of the best food in the city. And the food miles on it, if you ride your bike there, are actually zero. So if you want the freshest vegetables grown right in Anchorage and products from around the world, it's an amazing place to visit. Our partners there are Catholic Social Services and their Refugee and Immigration Services program. You can see new businesses being launched. Many folks are trying out hot food for the first time or sharing a baked good or a cottage food that they're trying on the market for the first time. Additionally, the Raise program has incredible gifts, which could be great for your next Valentine's Day. They have tea blends, they have spice blends, they have world cookbooks that were
I
created.
bought some of that stuff. It's so good.
Yeah. You'll get some credit as a gift giver if you give that. People are always impressed and excited. So yeah, it's an incubator that is really refugee powered in the heart of our neighborhood. And I think you can begin to see what else is possible there. This was just an abandoned trailer park that, we as Anchorage Community Land Trust use some of our real estate prowess to transform. But the next level of what that space could be is so exciting. If we were able to achieve building out a marketplace that was indoors, if we added a commercial kitchen element there so that people could take their goods to the next level and add value-add products, it's the kind of space that makes you excited about the future of our economy and makes you realize, just how Alaska is positioned in the world economy.
You guys talked about losing funding back in January. If folks are listening and they are learning about your organization and its mission, is there a way for people to donate?
Yeah, thank you for the question. We have a donate button on our website. I think you just go to our homepage and scroll down to where it says donate. All gifts are greatly appreciated. And
what's your website?
It's www.anchoragelandtrust.org. And then you click the button. Yeah, any support is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Well, Kirk Rose, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, this was fun. Thanks for having me. Happy New Year.
Thank you, listeners. If you like what you heard, please subscribe, rate, and review us. To contact me, email rep.andrew.gray@aklec.gov or call 907-269-0123.